What's up, motherfuckers? I already made a video about why I canceled 9 Lives, so, it's time. It's time, guys! We're gonna talk about the reboot! Let's go! First of all, if you haven't watched the video explaining why I canceled 9 Lives and why I thought it was really bad, you should really go watch that so that you can understand why I had to scrap the whole thing. Anyway, since there are probably some new people, since last time, I'm gonna talk about what 9 Lives is actually about now. The victim of a murder of a the young age of 12, back in 1960. After years of wandering the frozen landscape, at the age of 12, a portal appears in the distance, and as his curiosity gets the best of him and he approaches the portal, he gets sucked inside. And when he awakens, he's back in his old human body, having changed into his new age by magic. At the same time, three teenagers, each in the forest for their own reason, see a light and then hear a scream. This leads him to the cemetery, into the mining crypt, where they find Chris himself. The year is 2025, and Chris has been dead for over 200 years. So why now is he able to return? The kids soon find their answer when they encounter monsters, and Chris explains that those are monsters from Limbo. And during the encounter, Chris reveals that he has gained magic powers from Limbo. The group soon realizes that there are more to this than just the monsters. Over 30 people have gone missing in the last year, all bodies found in the woods with no clear sign of death. So what's been going on? The kids find out when they begin to be tortured by a group of spirits. And at the end of the first season, Chris finally confronts them and finds that he knows one of them. A 9-year-old serial killer child who loves to torture one particular soul, and now that soul is standing in his way, a threat to his plan to kill God. So that's the main idea. If you've read 9 Lives and heard some differences there, then good. This is a new version that I like a bit more and that has a bit of a better structure. You may also notice that there's someone missing from the story. Yeah, I killed Amber. Amber is a little girl who is the member of the main cast for a long time. She was in the original dream that I had about the story, and she was pretty close to Chris, but eventually she disappeared from the script for long periods of time with no real explanation. And so I think a part of me thought it was really mean that I was doing all this stuff to a 7-year-old, so I decided to torture a different 7-year-old. Instead of discussing Amber, let's discuss Chris. Because I left out some stuff. For one, there is a very big reason why Chris was chosen to be the one to save Heaven, and why Desmond likes to play with him so much. Chris has multiple lives. My logic with this series and how the resurrection stuff is going to work this time is that typically upon death, you detach from your body completely, unable to reattach. And this is why even the main villains have to create new bodies, because their original spirit bodies are not able to be seen by humans. And even those spirits have some limited manipulation of the living world. But Chris is special. And it's nothing to do with anything he did, more of something that someone did to him. His mother. His death was her fault. Elaboration will come later, but the gist of it basically is that their mother is a descendant of the worshippers of a goddess of death named Yosa, a goddess who disappeared hundreds of years ago, and may be important to the story. Maybe. But due to the way that she used magic, she ended up being cursed. And that curse made it so that all of her children were killed by the age of 18. Not just killed, murdered gruesomely. Chris, however, was born with a unique ability. Ever since he was little, he can sense someone's death coming. This eventually led him to try and stop one of them, the death of his own twin brother. Upon sacrificing himself, he realized that he survived, and that he wasn't killed, and only taken, and that his brother also survived. So when he returned to a broken family, in need of someone to protect them, and several young siblings who were probably primed to be next, he vowed that he would protect his family the same way that he did his brother. And now, for the next 7 years, he will do just that, throwing himself into danger to protect them, until his own death, fated at 12 years old, that he has no way of stopping this time. And when he finally dies, it breaks his mother. So much so that she murders his entire family in hopes of bringing him back. Does it work? Kinda. With 9 lives total. Guess what the title of the fucking comic is? Well, he won't have 9 lives for the remainder of the comic, of course. He'll use them and he'll gain more. This is sort of how it worked in the original comic, except I sort of didn't come up with most of this stuff until the very end of it, and so I didn't really get to work it into the plot very much. It's one of the reasons why I decided to change it, because originally it was really messy. The reason why Chris got hurt all the time was because he was just kidnapped all the time because of the actions of his father. His father being a pretty bad man, and they would all take it out on his favorite child, Chris. But they would also never kill him until he was 12 years old, where I guess his father did something particularly upsetting and led to them deciding to kill him. This change is honestly the best thing that I did for the world building. The story was really shaky before, and it's just really bad. And if you noticed one particular difference, it's that Chris now has a twin brother. This change is made for quite a few reasons. Originally, Tim was just a year older than Chris, and being close to him, he was one that he hung out with a lot. And he actually finds his way into one of the flashbacks in the comic itself. But due to a really big change, I decided to make them twins instead. So, let's talk about Desmond for a moment. Desmond is going to get his own video all to himself, but just to go over a few things, Desmond is now the most powerful of the three spirits, whereas before he was the weakest. I've also upped his scare factor because after 2 seasons, he looks and acts. Because after 2 seasons, he started to act like. Because after second, the second. Because because after season 2, he started to act like a baby who just wanted to really have fun. So instead, I made him a child who really thinks that torture is the funniest thing ever. With this scare factor increase, I also wanted to change some stuff about Chris's life in Limbo. Mostly to explain why Chris is completely alone. Sure, Wilfred dies, but there are mentions of other spirits in Limbo like Chris, but they are never seen. And Chris even comments on this, but we never even see them in any of the backgrounds. So, Desmond murdered them. One thing that I wanted to incorporate is Chris's optimism in the way that I wanted to be entirely broken, because I wanted him to be more depressed and sad, like sad in the main story. Because in the main comic, he kind of acts like a baby despite being 16 years old. I kept a few things like Chris being sensitive and crying easily, but he's much more sad and angry, and the reason is Desmond. Upon arriving to Limbo, he allows himself to cry, to mourn his life, to mourn the lives that will soon be lost in his family without protection, and mourning the separation from his twin brother, who he might never see again. But Wilfred and the other spirits find him and comfort him. But after he comes down, Chris gets really happy and excited because he no longer has all that pressure on him anymore. And that he doesn't have to worry about any more lives except for his own. But Desmond feeds on negative emotions. Literally, he eats it. It's the reason he's so powerful. Unlike the other spirits who can only consume souls, he can consume their emotions as well, which ties in quite well with his nightmare powers. So when he sees a very positive, happy child in his world, he wants to break him. First, he started with nightmares and flashbacks, but Chris didn't really let those bother him, and his positivity just kept spreading to the people around him. So instead, he went for the people around him. This moment marks two things: the manifestation of Chris's powers and the obsession for Chris that Desmond gains. Chris's powers manifest after their deaths, which is too late for them to actually help him. And Desmond sees this in the way that Chris finally lets out his emotions and wants more. He sees Chris as an endless fountain of food in his favorite little torture project. Desmond repeatedly tries to replicate this event, killing all those who come to Limbo after Chris tries to get close to them. So what does it have to do with Tim? Well, I wanted to give Desmond a human form, and initially I was going to base it on Chris, but I really like the idea of both of Desmond's eyes being visible because I wanted these black orbs to stare into your eyes as this psycho shot staring into the abyss. But it doesn't stare back. Only this fucking child does. But there was a character that I had already designed with a similar hairstyle that had both eyes visible. And he just so happened to be already pretty close to Chris. So now, instead of Desmond having no real form, he's taken the form of Chris's twin brother, as another layer of torture to put on him. But yeah, that's kind of all that I have for the first rewrite video. In conclusion, Chris is a child soldier. Yay! I also didn't really mention But the other two spirits have names. I just never got to introduce them into the main story in the original comic. The other two spirits we have are Cammy and May, and I'll talk more about those two in their own particular videos, just like I will with Desmond. Each of the three of them have their own specific powers, and with Desmond being the most powerful and Cammy being the weakest. Desmond being the most powerful and May being the weakest. That does not at all mean that May is weak at all. It just means that she's the weakest out of the three of them. I really wish I'd taken the time to calm down and look over the mistakes when I did the first version. But I was really excited because I was finally able to write more than 4 chapters on a project for once. It was the first story that I could see continuously from start to finish, and I didn't stop to outline much of it because I was so excited to just start. But that was a mistake. This time I'm actually going to figure out stuff out. But for now, the dawn will rise.